The story starts with a father on a mission to investigate artifacts, his young daughter Natsumi tagging along. Out of a sense of adventure, it doesn't end well for Natsumi. She loses her dad and her right arm. Still she survives and dreams of fighting and making a difference. Fast forward to when Natsume's about to leave school and take on a job as a tanker supporting the Gears, who fight monsters called Gadol. They all live on Decadence, a massive mobile fortress and humanity's last bastion. She wanted to be a soldier, but it seems her missing arm disqualifies her. Natsume is instead given a hard, dirty armor cleaning job under the supervision of a joyless man named Kabaragi. Natsumi eventually convinces her stoic boss to throw a welcome party for her, during which she gets drunk. Despite all her suffering, Natsumi remains optimistic about the prospect of defeating Gadol and living in true peace and prosperity. Before Anatomy leaves, she meets a pet harmless Geedle whom Natsume names Pipe. Later at night, Cabaretti is doing unexplained side job involving extracting chips from people when ordered by a shadowy boss. Eventually Decadence comes afoul of a Geedle attack party led by an immense leviathan-like Megagodolgiland that seems equivalent to the size of the fortress, surrounded by a bevy of bizarre candy-colored Gadols. However, even the smallest of them are bigger and faster than humans. On the other hand, the Gears use sphere-shaped flight packs in order to increase their speed and mobility. When the Get-All are spotted, Natsume and Cabaretti are still outside, and their collie and another maintenance guy end up falling off the side of the fortress. They fall for a very long time, accentuating the sheer scale of their home as well as the battle unfolding below. That battle actually doesn't seem to be going so well when Cabaret drops in with Natsumi, but he grabs a flight back from one of the dead Gears and proceeds to kill in the smaller Gadols with a tethered nauseous Natsume trailing behind him. In a high-tech command center, General Monado has his crew go through a number of checks and elaborate technobabble that essentially transformed the fortress into a giant mass driver cannon in the shape of the fist. Once the cannon is charged up, they wait until the Godol is as close as possible before firing and killing the monster. Later we see a city that looks like a submarine with many cyborgs, while the voice congratulates them on defeating the enemy. Well, that's actually Kabaragi's reality. His human form is only an avatar, and Decadence is a huge and elaborate entertainment facility run by the all-powerful Solid Quake Corporation. The Gears are all like him, robot-like beings who play Decadence with their avatars to gain experience and aim to be top rank. Only the tankers are all real human beings, the last of their species. In an extended flashback to 7 years ago, we see Cabaret and his elite ranker team. They all have odd skin and hair color because they're not really human, just avatars. Kabaragi is in the top 5 Gears in all of Decadence, but he can feel he's reached his peak. On the other hand, his young and eager comrade Mikey is slowly rising in the ranks. However, Mikey gets caught as a cheater and labeled a bug by Houston, a stoic matter-of-fact system administrator. Mikey gets scrapped and the entire ranker team disbanded, while all of Kabaragi's other teammates were sent into confinement for refusing their next assignment. Kabaragi decides not to go against the system today so he can live to possibly fight it another day. The nature of Kabaragi's new job: he's demoted to armor repair with the tankers, but that's just his day job. By night it'll be a recovery agent collecting the chips from humans deemed by the Hyujin to be bugs that could harm the system. Back to Anatomy, she incessantly begging Kabaragi to train her to fight, even when Natsumi half-heartedly tries to blackmail him with a photo she took with Pipe. Kabaragi won't budge on helping her. However, one she spots him sneaking around in the shadows and catches him removing a chip from someone, of course not knowing his story. As far as she knows, he's just robbing him because he's hard up for cash. Natsumi gets Kabaragi to promise not to rob anyone else and stop talking about it being over for him. Little does she know he's telling the truth, as he's been intentionally refraining from ingesting oxygen or rebooting, which will eventually lead to shut down a slow death. Kabaragi always assumed that Natsume was another bug, but when he scans her face he finds no data among the current population of tankers, and a deeper search reveals that she was listed as deceased way back when her dad died and she lost her arm. That means she's not only a bug in the system but one that's outside its control due to the lack of a chip. He finally ingests the oxyon, crediting her with saving him from an early demise, agrees to train her and shows her around the swanky Gears base. Natsume isn't going to let Failure after failure or nazying peers keep her from learning how to ride the wave of got all zones. Kabaragi even goes over film of Natsum's training and notices her crude artificial arms taking too long adjusting her flying device, which could prove fatal in a real battle against tougher Godal. In the middle of film review he's contacted by Hyojin, who wonders why he hasn't processed a bug in 13 days 7 hours and 28 minutes. Hyojin shows the representation of world history in which cyborgs eventually supplanted humans as the dominant species on Earth implies that not keeping bugs in check led to the humans' downfall. When Cabaret dives back into his human avatar, Natsum is at his door with an outfit for pipes so he can run around outside. When Natsumai tells Kabaragi that she's aware her old arm is a problem, he takes her to a weapons shop and outfits her with a new 5-fingered model. Also, her arm can transform into a spear gun, which should improve her fighting speed considerably. She's eager to test it out in the field, but a kettle alarm sounds. Decadence hits some kind of sinkhole and stops, and the resulting earthquake sends Natsumai, Cabaretti and Pipe flying. When Pike falls into one of the cracks in the earth, Cabaretti follows after him and requests location support from Commander Monatu. Meanwhile, Natsumai runs down and through the underground passage until she comes upon an absolutely massive cavern where she can watch the battle between medium-sized Gandalf and Gears unfolding. Going underground, Cabaretti tells Natsumai to leave, but she finds a weapon and arms herself. She sees Gears fighting in at a spine, however they end up being killed. She remembers Cabaret's training, and after regaining her composure she engages the Ava spine and manages to kill it. Cabanati locates Pipe but is about to be eaten by a megalone. Natsumai manages to come in time and kills the megalone. A rolling Darumas appears and breaks through the Gears defenses, however Kuru and her group arrive and easily kills it. Kurone is impressed by Natsumai, wondering from which team she is, but Natsumai explains she is weak and is not part of the power. Kurone disagrees and invites Natsum to the power, and she happily accepts. Kurone sees that Natsum's boss is Cabaret and is surprised to see him there, wondering if he had returned to active duty. A new event begins, a snow battle in the freezing cold, a large battle in which they will have to clear a Get-All nest and Getal Alpha. The humans are informed about the location of the nest and Kuranai briefs the people, instructing them on how they will proceed. Monatu speaks with Kabaragi and tells him that other cyborgs enjoyed his battle. He informs him that the storyline for the upcoming event is an impossible mission in which each gear will die, as defeating Gagdal Alpha is impossible even for S-class gears. Decadence will be placed in the grip of despair, but then legendary heroes like Kabaragi will return. Habaragi realizes that anyone from A-class and down will die in the upcoming battle. Natsumai gets placed in Team 6 with Mendy and Mundi. Natsumai tries to speak with Faye, but Faye refuses, knowing that Natsumai won't listen to her. Kabaragi visits Natsumai, and seeing she is preparing to participate in the battle, he tries to convince her not to and to explain that this battle had happened many times in the past and there is no nest. Natsum refuses to listen and wants to participate, as this would mean peace in the world. Unable to convince her, he breaks her flying gear and leaves the Gears. Anatsumi leave Decadence and head towards the fog to defeat the Getal Alpha. On their way they face multitude of Gadals, and the S-class has no problem killing them even in the fog. Unit 6 with Natsumai reach a cavern where they see dead Gears in Gadal Alpha. They engage it, however the Godal easily destroys their tankers and then kills them. Angered, Natsumai charges at him, but he outmaneuvers her and is about to kill her. However, Mindy sacrifices herself and saves Natsumai. Angry, Natsumai again charges at the Get-All. At this time she manages to hit him with a needle. To their surprise, the Get-All removes the needle and closes the wound. He throws the needle back at Natsumai. Kabariti comes and saves her. He faces the Get-All and manages to pin him, however the Godal releases steam and hides. Kabaragi uses the opportunity to take Natsum and run, explaining that he can't defeat him. Natsumai wants to help her friends in returns. Kabaragi returns with her, and after she takes her friends he faces the Ghetto. Monatu tries to stop him, telling him to run as the Getal won't chase him and that he will break the storyline. However, Kabaragi states he can't leave Natsumai die as she saved him. He removes his limiter and kills the Get Alpha. The fog clears and Gears can see the nest clearly, but in that moment a mountain-sized Get All Stargate appears. The developers state the Gagel was still in development and shouldn't have appeared. However, they can't stop it. Hearing that Monatu activates Decadence, he asks the S-Class to buy them time until Intercept form is completed. The Gears engage it but are surprised to see the destruction of its energy blast. The Intercept form is completed, however the Stargate is about to shoot another energy blast. Cavarite sees a weakness and manages to injure it and cause it to tilt and miss with its blast. The Stargate then extends its head towards the Decadence, but the Decadence shoots its cannon and obliterates it. In the morning, the tankers think a peace has come but are surprised to see there are many other ghettos out there. Meanwhile, Hyojin calls Kabaragi, who disagrees with him and states the world means bugs and gets punished for that. He is about to scrap him, but Moonin tells him something in huge incumbents. Someone must have intervened, as he is told to send him to the bug correctional facility. He is sent there with other cyborgs. Kabariti starts working Syria to correct his bugs and gets released. He meets Sarkaza. Sarkozy explains that there were no good doll attacks until they adjust the storyline, making Kabara wonder how they know that. Sarkozy explains there are people down there that can still log into the game. For Kabaragi's request, Sarkaza takes him to the leader of the bugs that can enter Decadence. Kabaragi is surprised to see Donatello, who tells him that he hasn't forgiven him and hates him for accepting to work for the system and becoming an armor repairer. Donatello tells him that there are rules and he needs to follow them, so he challenges him to a death dive. Standing above the rotating Feast Crusher's tank and using only a shovel, they must push the other down. As they fight, Kabaragi manages to defeat Donatello, but Donatello not accepting it causes both to fall. Kabaragi then uses his jets and pulls them both out of the pit. Donatello then admits defeat and take Cabaret to the place where he can log into the game. Jill warns him that he can't use his old account and he will be a stranger to this tanker girl, but Kabaragi accepts it and logs in, but it's surprised that there is a quest involving battle. He realizes it's an incursion and heads into the tanker, where he sees a hole in the tanker and Getals coming in. Kurade fights them at the hole, but some manage to get inside. Habarati chases and kills one while Natsumi shows up and kills another. They proceed and manage to stop the Keetle attack but suffer many tanker casualties. Monatu goes for a smoke where Kabarithi finds him and thanks him, guessing he was the reason he wasn't scrapped. Banata was surprised that Cabaret managed to lob into the game and wonders how, but Kabaragi doesn't answer. Kabaragi asks him about the hole in. Monatu explains it's stagecraft, as the tanker's population is rising and doing quests like this manages to lower their numbers. They start repairing the hole in. Monatu is notified of it but decides to leave them be. Kabaragi goes to see Natsum acting like a man who knows Kabaragi. Pike recognizes him and jumps on him after speaking with her and seeing her cry of how hard she needs to push herself in order to keep living. Kabaragi decides to tear it all down. Kabaragi logs out and goes to Donatello. He tells him he will make a big party and invites him as he plans on destroying the Get Off factory. Kabaragi suggests they use Decadence to infiltrate the factory, but Jill explains there is a shield around it and anyone with a chip, being Avatar or Tanker, it will be shut down and terminated. Kabaragi reveals there is an Avatar with no chip and is sure that Monatu had kept his Avatar not terminated. Kabariti guesses they still need to ask Monatu where his Avatar is in. Jill agrees to investigate. She contacts Monatu telling him she heard he has illegal Avatar collection, but he denies and then goes to check if they are alright, which she manages to track. Hyojin then visits Monatu and asks him to come with him. Entering the Decadence, the group heads into the Avatar storage room. Hyojin had heard that Monatu keeps illegal avatars and takes him to the Avatar storage room to check that. The group is surprised that Hyojin also came and they see he is calling Kabaragi's avatar. In the last moment, Kabaragi manages to reach his avatar storage and take it. They manage to get the avatar, but Jill explains they will need one more person and Cabaret states he has someone in mind. Cabaretti finds Natsumi and tells her they can stop the Godal, but only he and she can go. He explains it very dangerous, but Natsumi gladly accepts. Jill contacts him and informs Kabaragi that he has a visitor. He logs out and is surprised to see Monatu visiting him. Benedo guesses the pleasure toy is Kabarag's work and wonders why he stole his avatar. Kabaragi explains he can't stand the system jerking them anymore, whatever him or her. Cowberry tells him that if he destroys the factory he will end the system and Decadence. Kabaragi is jealous of tankers being able to think for themselves and decide their own path and not being determined by the system. He wants that for all cyborgs and asks Monadu if he will join his cause. Monada tells him that this will result in a chaos and then leaves. Meanwhile, Turkey tries to convince Sarkis to join him and turn Donatello and Kabaragi, as they can't beat the system and will only cause all of them to be scrapped, while this way they can be heroes and save everyone. Kabaragi and Natsumi prepare and then leave for their mission. Jill instructs Cabaretti again, explaining that after infiltrating the factory they should head to the ghetto genocide system and activating that switch will terminate all Gadolls. After that he needs to destroy the reactor. Kabaragi and Natsumi reach the lake and head towards the factory, passing through the invisible shield. Meanwhile, the bugs start burning the Gadol feces and the cyborgs are forced to activate the ventilation, which releases the stinky smoke that gathers in the lake doesn't tolerate the pollution and release their zones, causing some trouble for those in the factory. Kabaragi and Natsumi enter the factory, but Kabaragi is surprised to see Hyujin and Munin waiting for him. Hyujin recommends Kabaragi to return to his real body and he knows about the tanker bug. Meanwhile, guard attacked the correctional facility. Jill sees that Sarkazy and Turkey have betrayed them and pulls Donatello out of decadence and sends him to stop the guards from reaching the login devices. Eugene engages Kabaragi. Jill hacks the game and disrupts Hyujin's vision, creating clones of Kabaragi and Natsumi. Meanwhile, Donatello finds the guards and starts having fun beating them. Donatello captures Turkey and throws him into the feast's pit. In his last moments, Sarkazy recalls how Cabarati talked about pushing his limits. He gets inspired and uses his special liquor, swallows some burning feces and jumps into the feces pit, causing a huge explosion that reaches the factory and destroys the reactor. Natsumi distracts Hyujin and Kabaragi and she manages to escape him. They reach the ghetto genocide system where they pull the lever like it all starts dying one by one. Seeing that, Natsumi wonders what is going on. Cabaretti tells her that the world, the Godal, even his body are manufactured. Kabaragi explains that the world and Gadales are created by the cyborgs and the decadence is like a game for them. Hearing all that, Natsumi faints. Seeing the disintegration Gadals, the cyborgs are disappointed and are informed the game service is shutting down for the moment. Staff from the factory try to escape, but one of them gets stung by a small Gadol and they later die in the elevator. Kabaragi and Natsumi escape the factory and Natsum wakes up. Kabaragi explains that the humans can't know the truth and explains that her father was getting close to the truth and was labeled as bug and killed. Natsumi gets angry, stating that Kabaragi deceived her that evening. The tankers celebrate, but Natsumi doesn't want to join them. Hyujin goes into the tank area, but his search doesn't return a result and he is sure Anatomy is a bug. Meanwhile, Gadol emerges from the body of the dead staff and begins to feed on their bodies as the guards head down to the correctional facility. Donatello, Jill and Kabaragi help the remaining cyborgs and they manage to escape to the surface. They hide in old Decadence parts where he asked Jill to set up the logging device as he had seen Natsumi being labeled as bug. Natsumi returns home and finds Inoki left. He explains that he planned to die, but after meeting her he got captivated by how she lives and decided to continue living and destroy the rules of this world. Natsumi heads to his place as she realizes he intends to run away. She can't accept that and yells at him for planning to do it. She tells him she will fight with him to break those rules, and as he agrees, Hyujin appears from behind and stabs him in the back. Meanwhile, the escaped Godal had fed on enough corpses and had grown big. The cyborgs can't believe there is a survival Gab doll and realize it doesn't have a chip, so the system can't control it. Monada requests activation of Decadence. Hyujin notices it and states it's another bug. He attempts to kill Natsumi, however Cabaretti returns in another body and kills him with a needle. Natsumi wakes up and Cabaretti explains he is in different avatar. The unknown Gadol is designated as Omega by the system and Monadu is ordered to use the Decadence to destroy it. They fire the blood-sucking harpoons. Due to the previous damage to the tank, they can only use 60% of the Decadence cannon and they fire at Omega. Omega manages to catch and stop the attack and then rips Decadence's arm. Omega then punches the Decadence, causing serious damage to its movement systems. The system then orders a solid cannon to be used. While they charge it, Omega evolves and prepares a high-density Oxyon energy blast. Both Omega and a solid cannon shoot, however Omega overpowers the blast and manages to cause damage to the cyborg's base in space. Omega then falls asleep. Hyojin and Moon emerge and Moonin informs Monatu and the rest that Decadence Dome will be closed and facilities will be reverted along with Omega via the spatial compression device. A 6-hour countdown starts and cyborgs are told to log out. Monatu wonders what they should do, but Moonin explains nothing is required from him and only the system needs to be preserved. To make recovery possible, Monatu contacts Kabaragi and explains the situation. Jill joins their conversation and comments someone can log into Decadence and use it as avatar, but there is a risk, and reveals she was one of the team members that developed Decadence Core. Kabaragi decides to do it. Natsumi sees smaller Gadol coming out of Omega. The Gears start fighting the Gadols while Jill prepares Kabaragi for logging into Decadence. Kabaragi enters the core room and is followed by Minato, who tries to convince him to not risk his life. Meanwhile, Natsumi finds the escaped cyborgs and Jill explains they are comrades of Kabaragi and that's how the Gears actually look, and Natsumi finds them cute. Minato explains he is no longer sure in the system or himself. Kabaragi tells him he was saved by a bug and he made a decision to decide by himself. Kabaragi asks Minato to help him connect as it requires a second person. Minato then realizes Kabaragi expected him to come and agrees to help. Minato requests help from his staff to operate the Decadence. Jill tells Natsum that the connection is a success and that currently Kabaragi had logged into Decadence, but as Decadence doesn't move they wonder what to do. Natsumi proposes they make a weapon for Kabaragi and Jill explains it's on totally different scale than her arm, then realizes she can use older Decadence parts in his zone to build it. She contacts Minato, who issues a final mission requesting the Gears to fill the scattered Decadence parts with Axion in Chimatone. The cyborgs hear that Decadence will be shutting its service and they have issued a final mission. Hearing that, all cyborgs decide to log in for a final time and participated in not knowing why Kabaragi can't activate the Decadence. Natsum decides to go to him. Kabaragi wakes up in a destroyed town. The system explains it's an image of where humans once lived, but no organism can survive it now. The system wonders why he struggles as Decadence can't defeat Omega. Kabaragi states that isn't a reason for him to give up and wants the administrative authority for Decadence. Kabaragi asks the system if she is afraid of change. He comments the system merely changes in response to the outcomes of events, but he will show her what it means to live, and tells her to shut up and watch, and he then gains control over Decadence. As Decadence activates, Minato tells him the situation and requests him to take the scattered parts. They shoot out the blood-sucking harpoons, causing Omega to activate its zone. Kabaragi then releases light-guiding pseudo-fibers towards the parts and starts collecting them. Omega prepares to shoot an energy blast, however Donatello charges at its mouth, causing its energy to spread and not hit Decadence. Using the spare parts, the Decadence arm is complete. They fire Decadence's cannon, but it's not enough to defeat Omega as they are out of oxygen. They can't increase its power. Kabaragi recalls his time with Natsumi and releases his limiter and then blasts Omega. With Omega defeated, the countdown stops at 3 seconds. Decadence then collapses. A bit later they manage to dig out Kabaragi. Natsumi explained she broke the arm he made for her and thanks him for everything as his light goes out. 3 years later on Shimi Town, Minato had become Supreme Administrator with Jill being his secretary, going over some of the data. Jill explained she took samples of various things. Minato wonders about a red file and Jill comments she took a sample from Kabaragi for a backup when she upgraded him for Decadence, making her realize she can use it to restore Kabaragi. A Decadent city has been made where cyborgs can come and entertain themselves in various parts. Farm area, an attraction area built in the Decadence court where you can enjoy zero-gravity core ball sport, and a battle area for those who can't forget the thrill of the fight. A Gadol area has also been made where you can interact safely with peaceful goggle or even raise your own goggle. The tank became residential area where both cyborg and tankers can live. Natsum had started Natsum Tours, a field exploring activity where she takes people on exploration adventure outside of Decadent City. As she finishes work she sees Cowberry in his avatar walking towards her and rushes to hug him. The end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more amazing recaps.